allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided, as is required by Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, with respect to the Home News Tribune to publish the same. This announcement must be entered into the minutes of the meeting. For those attending today's meeting, please be aware that all board meetings are recorded via audio. Roll call.
Chairman Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Franklin?
Present.
Commissioner Katz?
Here.
Commissioner Moskowitz?
Here.
We have adoption of 5 sets of minutes.
I move we adopt all the minutes that are listed on the agenda.
A second.
Second.
Roll call.
Chairman Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Katz?
Yes.
Commissioner Moskowitz?
Yes.
Under old business, we have the nepotism policy.
Policy was presented at the last
Correct.
board meeting, and you showed us to review it and then decide to either implement it or not at the next meeting.
Commissioners have any?
Yeah, there was, I had mentioned at the last meeting that I did not know the definition of unclassified service of the civil service of the Board of Elections. And I really just wanted that change to read any Board of Election employee.
Okay.
Because I know what a Board of Election employee is, but I don't know what that definition is.
You can make that change if you want to approve it with that change.
Yeah. I move to approve it. As amended. Well, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Moskowitz, you
Thank
had
you.
your hand up.
Yes, I did. You know, I always had a concern about implementing such a strong policy, and I was wondering, had commissioners considered the fact that we're now in 2 sites, or the possibility of these 2 sites? Do you think that makes any difference to the issues that you had witnessed earlier in your careers, or making it be necessary to implement such a strong policy? Do you think anything would have been different? You understand what I'm saying?
You mean the 2 locations, you mean?
Yes, the fact that we have 2 locations for the board now, would that have made the problems that you witnessed prior to making this be necessary?
Well, the employees seem to be back and forth. None of us the same ones here,
So you
as
just,
I see.
Yeah, we have a couple of things. One, this is a temporary situation.
I
When
did know
the
that.
students come back, we're going to be gone, I'm
Maybe.
assuming, because they're going to use the space. Or at some point, otherwise, with the pandemic lessening, at some point, we're going to be back in one spot. So I think that would be really the situation. And in fact, it's correct, we do have employees back and forth, so it doesn't the same issue. So that's just my comment.
and once we vote on this policy, can it ever be revisited due to other circumstances?
Of course, Ken.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You moved it, Commissioner Katz?
Yeah, I moved.
Do we have a second?
As amended. Second.
Roll call.
Chairman Engel?
Yes, to approve the nepotism policy.
Commissioner Franklin?
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Katz?
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Moskowitz?
Hesitantly, yes.
Okay. Electronic poll
But
books.
before we use it, can we get a modified copy sent to us ultimately, so we will have a copy of this as fully adopted? Thank you. I'm sorry.
The electronic poll books is the next subject, under old business.
Yes, Commissioner, this is a follow-up and just for clarification for the Commissioner. So board staff and a couple of Commissioners saw a couple of the electronic poll book vendors down in Princeton that showcased that the state organization had put together, the NJAEO. And we had done a little bit more in-depth demonstrations a couple of weeks ago with the vendors, and staff ourselves have kind of met with the vendors, kind of review security procedures for electronic poll books. Again, I think we kind of, from staff perspective, I know I'd ask your perspective, but I think I could say from the staff perspective that the recommendations from the vendors would be that we would support ES&S pilot for the June primary, selecting 2 polling locations that, staff would bring to you for your approval, whereby we would have the vendors in each of these polling locations, and then having the poll workers and voters kind of provide feedback on the efficacy of the poll books and the interface and the workflow in terms that it provides. So I think, at that point, we would want, we would have all the information that we would need to be able to make a full recommendation to the commissioners in terms of a poll book to move forward with. Again, in terms of timeline, ideally, we would want to purchase poll books in the time frame either between now and the end of June, so that we would have poll books in our possession, that we will have installation, be able to procure storage, installation and training during the summer, so that we are able to then train poll workers effectively in the fall, and then for us kind of work with the vendor to be able to get the proper setup and installation to our needs at the board. So I think in terms of timeline, we want to move forward. At the same time, I think we want to be able to do a little bit more due diligence, and so we're kind of putting it to you if that would be an acceptable way to move forward, so that the board can get a little bit more insight into the poll books as they're used in the polling location.
Would that entail additional training for poll workers for this election? If we do two polling places?
We would kind of have to work with clerks to identify polling locations and poll workers that they think would work, and with that additional responsibility, we would have to require maybe additional training. We would go to the county and seek additional payment for those. It's only fair that if you're being asked to take on additional training and using this new technology, that you get paid a little bit more for your services on election day. So we would be able to work with the county to identify additional resources for poll workers for that day.
Okay. Any other comments, Commissioners?
I may have apologized. I thought at the beginning you talked about ES&S and 10X. We had 3 commissioners that had either ES&S or no ink as first or second choices.
And again, I said this is really just for a staff response. Again, I haven't said these were the ones that should be done. And again, it's ultimately your decision. But we feel, at least the interaction that I had with staff in terms of all the conversations we had, is that the consensus is that ES&S and 10X, at least from our perspective, were our top two vendors that we
Well,
thought.
I guess the question that I would have was why, what's the reasoning behind 10X? Because
Being considered. Being considered?
yes.
I'll summarize my thoughts and I'll let anyone else kind of jump in. From my perspective, I really love the interface for poll workers. I thought of the three units, it was the most easy, not that the other 2 were more complicated. I thought it was the easiest interface for poll workers and for voters. And
Which
the other
one
thing
did you say?
What was that?
Which one did you say?
For 10X.
For 10.
And then the other thing is that from my perspective, for staff perspective, in terms of what I thought was the easiest for staff to load elections onto poll books, the one that seemed the easiest in terms of interaction between staff, in terms of things that we liked, I thought 10X had the better software platform. It's not that we don't like some of the other things that ES&S and no one provided, but those were 2 of the things that we liked. I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about 10X, but
I have a few differences with certain things. One, the really big thing that we have to remember with 10X and knowing, they are ballot on demand systems. What that means is you're going to have a printer in the polling place.
No, they have ballot on demand as an option, which we don't need.
You need it for provisional ballots, Commissioner Katz, or else you cannot use it. That's part of the law. Because you can't put a polling place with a whole county's worth of polling places of provisional ballots. It has to be a ballot on demand for early voting.
My understanding is that they can use the same process that we use with our machines for ESNS, to print out the ballot sheet.
No.
That's the way.
They won't even have access to that interface. That's gonna be, you can ask ESNS this question, not them, because they don't understand even what that means. This is a process that ESNS came up with on their own. The other companies don't even understand what they're doing with that. That is something they don't even know about. The only thing they can do right now currently is when you find the voter's name, it has that printer on the side, and it'll print the barcode for the correct ballot style it'll pull up, right? That's the only thing it can do. It'll never be able to do the new stuff because that's a new system update, and they'll be far behind and left behind, to the point where that if we use ESNS, we won't even be able to use their barcode printer because they'd have to go and ask for permission to be able to do so. This is what Joe McIntyre explained to me from ESNS. So right now, they'd actually be left out in the cold.
That process you were talking about, Commissioner, that was something they still have to go to the state and get
Yes.
approval to
But that's,
do.
everybody has to do that. All three companies have to. I don't think anybody's got anything approved. Well, none of the companies actually.
None of them are approved yet, period, anyways, at least in the state. We understand that part. But ESNS believes this will be in effect and be ready. For the voting machine, it needs to go so that they can add that feature to the voting machine itself, so the voting machine can be able to do it. But their current process would be, we could use one of their we have what we call the Express Vote XL. They can loan us the Express Vote, which turns into their ballot on demand, which basically means they're using our ballots, whatever size it is, and it'll print the barcode, you put it in, so the voters in the general election right now will still be able to use, they're gonna lend it to us, and they'll be able to use their regular Express Vote, which is that big giant tablet that you saw that's on the table.
Yeah, what they were.
That won't be ballot on demand, so ESNS doesn't have a ballot on, they do have a ballot on demand system, but we won't have to use it if we choose ESNS. They have to still go through approval from the state as far as getting our machines to be capable of doing that. Right now, they're not, but that other machine actually is, and it is approved in New Jersey. So they were saying to us, we will lend it to you with no problems because you choose us. And then they're hoping that by the end of the year or beginning of next year, we'll be able to put those provisional ballots and use them on our machines instead.
Yeah,
So
I
that
heard-
there are
I
no
heard
ballot on demand. Yes.
That part of that presentation.
Yes, so they wouldn't be ballot on demand if we chose them. They wouldn't even be ballot on demand in October for us, or I'm sorry, November for us. They wouldn't even, because we would be able to use their, Express Vote, the giant tablet, sorry. But the other ones are, they have that big, ugly, and I thought that thing was huge and a little bit too much. That's gonna have to be stored and shipped like a machine. I'm not gonna have space in my warehouse. I don't know what kind of space Linda's gonna have.
Are you saying, it sounds like you're saying ESNS for what you're, I don't fully understand what you're talking about yet, but it sounds like what you're saying is ESNS, but not the other two. That doesn't get us to 10X.
No, the way I was phrasing it is that again, I was saying to the staff, is our first preference would be ESNS.
Yeah.
And then if we had to say there's another vendor that we would like to explore, it would be 10X. But again, if we were going to, and again, I'm proposing, again, it's up to you how you want. You can tell me today, I want you to purchase, go ahead and start purchasing these. But again, in terms of doing our full due diligence, if you wanted us to do a pilot, we would do ESNS and a second vendor as a pilot in the June primary.
So I would be in favor of doing a pilot and getting any more information. I'm not comfortable that we have everything, all the information we want to make a decision to purchase machines, poll books for the county yet. I would be happy. I would be not unhappy with the pilot, but perhaps we should do a pilot with all three machines.
Isn't that gonna be complicated?
It's already
For what?
complicated with two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about 3 separate locations. You're talking about,
Okay.
the issue that I have from a staffing point of view, and Linda can say the same. we need to learn how to use these machines as well, because are you comfortable as commissioners with only the vendors running it and your Board of Elections being completely out of the mix?
No, because that doesn't give us a pilot.
And aren't these persons whom you would want coming in with the most information for you to make a decision? Yes,
Yeah.
it's our choice to purchase,
No.
but I'm not going to make that
No,
decision without
well,
knowing.
that's why I'm in
best
favor of
efforts.
using, of doing something as a pilot. But my inclination would be, as a pilot, would be ES&S and knowing, not ES&S and TANX.
Okay. I don't know,
I mean, what you're.
I'm not gonna speak for
What you're
Linda.
saying,
You're not saying 10X versus knowing.
Well, as far
You're
as,
just
the-
talking about ES&S.
I agree with Tom on the 10X part over knowing. As far as, at least from my perspective, I saw the way that the structure was set, and I liked the operating features of it. I really thought that they did a very good job, and I'm really impressed with their technology and the way that things are set up. I do think that from a standpoint of, again, you're only thinking about what you've seen on their but I have to think about their operations, and what I like about 10X is I do believe that if Linda says, we don't like this, we want this,
Yeah,
I believe that they will do that for us within seconds, because of the way that they are going to structure how they pay attention to our county. They say New Jersey, I don't care what they talk about with the whole state, I care about how they look at ours. And we know, I already know, it's kind of one of those things, like the devil you know, and in the situation of knowing, Linda can attest to this, so I'm not even going
I
to speak
do want you to
on
speak
that.
if you
Yes.
take, but
I agree.
I didn't feel that way with all
Well, I
three
agree
of
with
the
the gentleman, I think we all agreed on it, we're not comfortable with knowing. We've had a lot of issues in the past on the voter registration ends of it, and I'm not confident that they have this end of it down pat with no
Well,
issues.
the voter registration end of it is apparently new. I agree in terms of the problem.
But I get it was an old product that they purchased, and they're trying to put Band-Aids on it, but we have a lot of
Exactly.
issues. It used to be an
That's
HP
the
product.
SVRS product.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not their electronic poll books. The fact of the matter is, Knowink has been is installed more e-poll books in place and in more jurisdictions than anybody else. So, to
Because
say.
they were also the first to the show.
No,
So they've been around
there were
longer as
other-
far
there were
as-
other, I've been looking at e-poll books since I've gone to the national conferences, and there were many other people other than the.
And ES&S had one for a long time, but they just changed it. They just scrapped the whole system and just revamped it. 10X just came on board. They said, I think they said in their demonstration of how kind of new they are, and what their interface was, and how they took certain things from both companies and they kind of just went off and did their own thing. And from an operational standpoint, again, just from what I saw from them and their demonstration in both places, because I went to both, I really feel like that the ease of that for us, because I think about the voter, obviously, and I think about the poll worker, but I also think about us and how we would need to incorporate it into what we do every day, and that's what I believe. And they have obviously their own opinions, but that's just me. Christine.
Yes.
I don't think that we should be prejudiced against the poll pads from Knowing, because the SVRS is still messed up, which is something that they picked up from another vendor.
It's not a matter of prejudice, it's a matter of realizing that there are two. I think it would be foolhardy for us to attempt 3 in our trial. So if these are the 2 that seem to work the best, I'm not
I
sure
don't
why you
think-
have your strength,
I don't
You
think
keep
it's the
pushing
two
this
that,
through.
I don't think it's the 2 that works that
but they do.
But do you have any additional experience in terms of that, other than the 2 presentations that we've received from both of these companies? At least all these 3 of these companies. I mean, it's,
I'm unsure.
we
if
were
you're-
actually, we were at the showcase, the early voting showcase. The commissioners were there, we were there. And then we had the 3 people here, and there was another presentation, longer presentation. Do you have any additional information that you've gotten from these companies other than those 2 presentations?
Those 2 presentations? You mean besides staying after and talking to each company, which I did do during those
And
presentations.
I talked to them as well.
I stopped and I asked the questions that I felt I needed to ask, especially using this stuff every day.
Yes.
And especially training poll workers. And I felt personally, this is my own personal opinion, and I don't know anything about their customer service because I don't use that. I did not like their product in New England. I did not feel that it was suited for what we do here. That's just me. It's just my opinion. I didn't bring up the customer service from my end.
For what we do here. I'm trying to, that's why I'm looking for the.
Don,
opinion.
you're entitled to your own opinion. It's just, this is my opinion.
Yeah, no, I know, but on what is it based? I'm trying to get to the factual part of it so that we can make a decision.
My opinion is based on how easy I think that we can make things fit what we do here. Because no matter what we buy, it's not set the way we need it set in this county. No, I don't care who comes in here. You can bring in 20,000 e-poll book companies, and I promise you, I'm gonna find holes in everything they do. Because we do things a specific way, so that we don't end up in court, we don't end up in the papers, okay? And I like to stay that way, so I always look at it as what's my responsibility as a supervisor, and how easy do I want my staff and my poll workers to understand how to use it, so that then we can portray it out to the voters and everything else. Because
So
if
would you-
we feel
would
it's
you-
easy and wonderful,
Would you say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I
No, that's okay.
apologize. Would you say then that 10X is more flexible, let's say, in their programming?
Ability.
In their ability, their customer service, as far as that's concerned, and will adjust to what we need for this county a little quicker, better, more efficient than, let's say, Knowing? Is that a
for the
statement?
most part, yes. And some of the things that Knowing had on there, I don't think are worth our time. For instance, voting times.
Yeah.
Do you realize that we are a two-step voting process in this county? How are they gonna know what a voting time is from a e-poll book when someone was on the machine for 10 minutes? That's incorrect. You can't tell me any one of those vendors are gonna tell, unless the machines are opened up, which we have brand new machines, but the state will never allow us to open those machines to Wi-Fi because they'll be hacked. So unless you know from that standpoint, you're never gonna truly know what a voting time is. So stop trying to sell us on bells and whistles that we don't need and can't use anyways.
So we need the basics.
So if we put something out, I'm serious, if we put it out on the website, voting times are as quickly as 3 minutes, approximately or something like that. And then all of a sudden someone gets there and they're there for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Are they going to be a little upset because I chose this place on early voting because it said it was only a 3-minute wait?
They're all,
If I could maybe redirect the conversation, because I know that other commissioners had other thoughts about the poll books. I mean, I think you kind of know where we are. I mean, it's ultimately up to you. You can either tell us you want one,
Sure.
you can tell us you want to do one pilot, you want to do 2 pilots, you can even tell us 3, although we would say that would be a little too much. But I mean, it's ultimately your decision how you want to structure it, and we'll kind of take your lead on it.
One's a lot of work.
And I'm inclined to take the lead of staff because they're the ones that have to work.
It was great. I was surprised you even going to do it.
Like me.
I would agree. I think with you people working with what we have, I think ES&S could give us the availability if they get approved. I think that's something that is down the road. We're looking at something down the road, so it makes sense to do that one. I think that's a no-brainer for the commissioners. Is that correct? That one of them that should be tested should be ES&S?
there's a positive for having one of the pilots from the same vendor.
Right, same vendor. Okay, so I think we're all in agreement that there's one vendor. Does all the commissioners believe that we should try a second vendor? 'Cause I think we should.
Yes.
So now it's either between Knowing or 10X. And I agree with Sylvia. I think we should take the advice of the staff. I think if the staff feels that that's the way to at least to look at it. The only other thing I can say is if we only do 2, and let's say Knowing is being, I'm just saying, if we feel Knowing is, we're leaving them out for some reason, there's other counties that I assume are going to be doing pilots. Let's face facts, okay, we have primary day. We don't have to stay in the county. It might behoove us to look at, I mean, we have to do our due diligence, but we also have to purchase these very quickly. So once the primary's over, it's almost like we're going to have to make a decision and purchase them. So,
At the end of June.
right, so that doesn't give us much time to, we can evaluate what we did, but maybe we should be evaluating counties that are similar to us. If someone did this, and then take a road trip or something, or maybe, report back, or, two commissioners go and two commissioners stay here, and then maybe, all I'm saying is that I don't think we can do three. Three is out of it from mine, and I would take the staff's recommendation. If you think 10X, I would agree with 10X.
I'm somewhat skeptical on that, but if some other county, some reason is going to do a pilot project that includes the toll pads on primary, so we can take a look at that and see the feedback, then I wouldn't mind the other two as long as we're doing. So if we can get three, even if one is out of county at the price of two, then I could do that. But I don't want, but.
But I can't have staff go outside of county on primary day, so
Yeah.
the out of county would be either a
Yeah.
commissioner or two would have to go out of county
Yeah.
to look at it, that's all.
Okay, that sounds good.
So do you need a motion on that, or do you need a?
I don't think I need
I
a
don't
motion.
think
And then get back to you with a plan about how we actually do what we say we do.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we move on to new business. Cure letter schedule.
I'll kind of
Linda.
pivot for Linda. So again, just to, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So a change from last year to the legislation that was codified was, if you remember last year for commissioners, you had to meet 4 times a week,
Yeah.
multiple weeks prior to the election. So what was codified was, I guess because we're going back to a scaled back version in terms of mail-in ballots, and that 3 weeks prior to the election, you would have to meet once a week to review the ballots that potentially could be cured, so we could send them out before we certify the election. So I think Linda wanted to maybe work with you to identify dates and times to which that would be done.
Yeah, I think you said it was 3 weeks before, but yeah, we wanted to set up a date. It does say or more, you can come in more if you had to, but at least once a week. So we were thinking about Friday.
Does the legislation say once a week?
It says once, Linda was correct, it would be a minimum of once a week, but if you wanted to do more than once.
Because our scale of balance is
Schedule
15%,
out.
or so maybe of the number of ballots we had in the primary, sent out in the primary in general, the paper ballots.
So we're recommending, we're asking to have you guys come in on a Friday, so you'll have the whole week's worth of, if there's signatures to be looked at. So again, anything that's printed or missing will go out automatically, you're just looking at the ones that doesn't match. After we've double checked it.
Okay.
I think the Friday before Memorial Day weekend could be difficult.
I prefer Thursdays anyway.
You prefer
I
Thursdays
mean, I can
anyway?
understand the need for Friday, gives you the whole week, and it's not every.
So we're talking starting when?
Mr. Lynch said 3 weeks before. You want to know what date it is?
We're talking like May,
Yeah.
if it's Friday, May 14th, 21, 28.
3 weeks before is the 18th.
Hmm?
3 weeks before the election would be May 18th.
That's a Tuesday.
Yeah, but you're talking about Friday, so if you're talking that day, every week.
Could I ask for indulgence on that one, on the 9th? Could I do that week on the 19th, if possible?
Well, the proposal was
That's a
Friday.
Wednesday.
I know, I'm just asking for indulgence, that's all I'm asking
Well, Beatrice talked about Thursdays, and we're now talking about Tuesdays.
on that week, is all I'm saying.
So,
You tell me what date, it doesn't matter to us. We'll be
So
ready.
as long as 3 commissioners are here, you're fine, then, correct?
Yeah.
Quorum,
that's
yep.
So May 18th, what time would it be?
No, that's
May,
I know.
May 18th is actually the close of registration, so that's 3 weeks before the election.
Yeah.
We don't have to meet on the 18th, I'm just saying
That
that's. the-
Friday is the 21st, Sylvia.
The 21st?
21st,
Yes, yes,
So May 21st,
like 4 o'clock or?
that's fine.
and then,
Can you meet any earlier?
Then 5/28 was the, you're saying
Can you
was
come in
Friday.
any earlier,
but
Sylvia?
how about the May 27th?
Earlier on the
Yeah, we
21st?
can do it earlier.
Which would be a
Sylvia?
Thursday?
Yeah.
Can you come in any earlier that instead of the,
Mhm.
because
So would you rather just keep it every Thursday then? It doesn't, I mean, I just said Friday because throw a date out. If you want just to keep it consistent in every Thursday, you want to do it that way?
Actually, I think I like Thursday, because then you can put in the mail or whatever on Friday, and you're have to worry about. the
Okay,
post office
so that would be
being,
5/20,
That's a good
this is
idea.
Thursday,
Well, that's fine.
5/27, 6/3,
I have potential issues if it gets too late, because I do have some meetings at 7 o'clock on that day. But if we start early enough, I
Yeah, I'm
don't think there's
fine.
going to be any issue. If I can get back at it in time for
Okay,
that,
but-
I'm fine.
If we're gonna start posting this thing, we'd like to get a set time now, right?
we have to advertise.
That's what I mean, so if you want it earlier, and I have no problem with earlier, just let's decide now so Maria can put it in appropriately. Sylvia, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Earlier is okay with me.
3 o'clock then?
3?
Just so that you're aware, we're doing poll worker training this month in the cafeterias. So we would have to reserve a separate room unless you're gonna do it at the board office.
I'm not going
We have no room at the board office, honestly. There's so much stuff from November still back there.
I mean, we can resolve the location.
Okay.
I think it's, time-wise.
So can I just say it again, May 20th, May 27th, and June 3rd at 3 p.m. at the college.
to. 3:20, all right,
Location to be determined, or room to be determined.
great.
Okay.
Okay, and then we have the other,
Anything else on your report, Linda?
I finished, am I
No,
going to do
that
my
was
report?
just a new business item, Chair.
That was the cure schedule.
Yeah.
This is just the cure schedule, you're saying?
Okay. And then the other ones that we will do the rest of them on election day? The ones that come in up until election day?
Okay, we'll move on to the administration reports. Linda, you go first.
I just have, mine's kind of just the dates, so just showing you how much is on NBC Agency Online. Everything is about 500, so we're pretty caught up with that. We're working on other stuff, other changes. We just received, 5 trays today, mail-in ballots, so they're starting to come in now. And then the dates for the primary, I need you guys to focus on the hearing. So for election day, it's always at 4 p.m., but the other two for the post-election mail-in ballot hearing and the provisional ballot hearing. Are those dates and times okay?
So on the 16th, I need to, if I could, yes, I need to make that at 5 p.m. Is that possible
What date?
on the 16th?
That's a Sunday,
Post-election,
No, June 16th. please.
June, sorry.
June
where it says at
16th.
the bottom, post-election mail-in ballot hearing with commissioners Wednesday, June 16th.
Gotcha.
5 p.m.?
Is 5
Fine.
p.m. better?
Is that good?
Better for me, thank you.
We can do that.
Yep.
And then the provisional ballot hearing Friday, June 18. 4 or 5?
4 o'clock.
Friday the 18th?
Yep,
4 o'clock's
June 18. 4 is good? Okay,
More things to the calendar.
that's what I have.
That's it, Linda?
And unless advised otherwise, it'll be at the college.
Yes.
That's it? Yeah. Steve?
Okay, we're finalizing polling places still. We're working on, I got a few more towns to work on. Once we are finished, we will send out an elaborate list of everything, so what you can expect.
We still have to approve some of them. We have, yeah.
Absolutely, yes. I still need to inspect them. but,
Yeah, that's a good
so,
thing. We should inspect them before we approve it.
Yes. The board staff is conducting, we just did public train the trainer today. So we have, most of us here are wearing shirts and some of the new staff that came as well. So that'll roll into my next setup real quick, which is Glenn Green and Frank Leahy both started in the warehouse on Monday. So they are with us now full-time. And the poll worker training does start on Monday, the 10th, that's this Monday. The schedule this week coming up is, we're missing Thursday and Friday because the tax board isn't here again, just like today. And then they will, once they vacate, we'll go back to having the 3 sections and we'll have our classes set up. But basically, our 4 classes a day that we're gonna offer is the 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 3 p.m., and 6 p.m. Okay, and we'll pick it, so we'll do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. We'll pick it back up on Saturday. If there is, in abundant amount of people coming, we will set all 4 training. I will do that if need be. Obviously, we'll try to keep that last class off if we can, so we can have a little bit of a Saturday. But if not, it's not a big deal. I'd rather train poll workers and have them.
So it'll include Saturdays?
Yes, and again, if we're not filling it, then we might knock a class or 2 off depending on. That always happens to me too. So then, but after that, the next 2 weeks following will be full weeks, and including Saturdays as well. And again, it all depends on the availability of the poll workers. If they're going to continue to keep coming, we'll find ways of staffing and training. So because we obviously want to get them all caught up. The voting machines are now ready to be programmed. So when we do get the okay on that one, they're all set up and ready to go. We worked on that this week. And then my last request is after these, the law that came into effect and everything with early voting, now that machines are going to be impounded, we need to talk about ordering new voting machines, because I don't have enough to cover early voting and what I currently have.
How many?
I was hoping for, what do I have, 7? I was hoping for an extra 180.
Wow.
I know that might be a big reach, and that's fine too. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of that'll give me enough to where, because remember, the end of this year, we're gonna start redistricting too. And I'm gonna need more voting machines. So if I can get them now instead of trying to order them twice, it would be very beneficial for us. Because any amount, so if we use, let's just, for quick math, if we use, 10 polling, right? We need
10 locations.
10 early locations. If I use 6 machines per, that's 60 machines, I can't get them back. They are impounded through the rest of the election. So that's 60 gone already. You take that out of my, so if you take 60 machines out right now, out of my 720 I think I have, I'm already cutting close to 615.
Plus whatever you're using for
You have
poll worker
720,
training.
you have 60, you have 720 now.
Yes, so if I lose the 60, and we have 615 districts, and we do, I know that we won't need double machine districts like we used to, because of the early voting. I think that will cut down on election day need. But the difference is, where I will fall into line is, we still do have audio voters, and I can't tie up a machine for 20 minutes, so they will still get there too. And then, once all that's said and done, there's not a lot left over for spares and for poll worker trainings, which of course they'll be designated at that point. I mean, I can get them back, after poll worker training is done, I can get them back in the warehouse that Monday, and we could turn them into spares. Yes, that's not a problem, but the point is just, they would only be spares. I can't flip them and then send them back out. So I'm getting too close to comfort to be, so I know we're gonna need more. However, obviously the board wants to do it. I just know that once we do this order, because we're doing early voting, once we do redistricting, you're gonna be putting in another order right away. I promise you that, because the amount of districts that are coming. So I'm just trying to be preemptive, because either way, and I also know how vendors are. I'm sure if you give them one big order, it'd be a lot cheaper than 2 small orders as a whole too. I don't know that offhand. I didn't ask them any questions, but I'm just saying it's usually how they work all the time with us. But yeah, I know that we really need it. I just want to bring it to your attention. I discussed this with Tom too. We need it probably as soon as possible. Hopefully over the summertime, getting at least a few, so I have a little bit of a relief, so we're not right up against it.
You have room in the warehouse?
But yes, I do. Yes. I don't care how much you want to give me. I will make room in the warehouse, because the more we have, the more comfortable I am. So ask Mike. We'll make room. Got no problems with that.
Unfortunately, the problem is, we have no experience in terms of how many machines we should put out in the early voting.
I know.
I don't know if anybody, I don't know.
I don't know if 6 is little. I don't even know if
Exactly.
6 is too little. I have no idea. I'm just,
Yeah.
we were just discussing, Tom and I, just kind of rough numbers. What if it turns out to be 8? What if it's extremely busy? What if it's not busy at all? And then I can shrink it down. I don't know, but I'm getting too close for comfort. So either way, even if you wanted to give us the 60 that we would use, I'm comfortable with that too. I would say round it up and give me 80, just so that it turns out to 800 at least for now, if you wanted to do that too. I'm just saying, I'm aiming high because I also know what's coming down the pipeline. Because when we have that fall into place and our districts go up to, I don't know how many they will, but that means I have to put at least a machine with each. So we're talking about adding more machines
I mean,
anyways.
we have any number of districts that are above the numbers now.
Yes.
And we haven't been able to do anything for the last 3 or 4 years, whatever the numbers since the time period. So there's definitely going to be more.
Yes.
How many more? You have a better idea than me.
Honestly, I don't even know anymore at this point. It's a lot. I mean, in all fairness, the laws are antiquated. They put those 750 numbers and 1,000 numbers because they matched it to old voting machines because they didn't go up over 500. The voting machines stopped at 500, the old metal ones. So these laws are very antiquated with that. If we have these bigger districts, we can survive. That's not really an issue because we have machines that can handle this. So it's not really the worst thing in the world, especially with early voting. It changes a lot. Voting districts don't have to be the specific numbers. It's just that Title 19 was written so many years ago, and it's definitely outdated to where we are today.
Especially if you're, like, the trend that the companies were saying is that once you do early voting to start with, it's used sparingly by the population, and most people vote on election day, but after a couple of years, it'll inverse, and most people will take advantage of the early voting, which means you'll need more machines for early voting as opposed to election day. So, I mean, if you're comfortable with what Steve is, maybe we can just purchase the early voting additional machines now, and then wait until we kind of, and again, to Steve's point, there might be legislation that comes down the pipe in terms of, like we were talking about, consolidation of polling locations on a machine that expresses it a little bit more clearly. So we might want to wait until next year, but we could purchase the new one. So if you're okay with the, maybe, what was it, 84 machines for early voting at this point?
Yeah, that could definitely work for me. Because again, I don't know if they want, like if we are supposed to put out 8 or if it's 6 or if it's 5, I don't know that exact number yet.
I don't think the legislation says anything about the number of machines.
Oh, no, they won't
I
give
don't
us
have
that.
that
They won't give us that because then they're committing to something. But if you look like certain states like Texas, they had 2.5-hour, 3-hour waits on the first day of early voting. Now, they may have all come out on the first day and then after it slows down and it's like next to nothing. We don't really know that yet.
But the truth of the matter is you won't know until you identify the locations,
Yeah.
Yes.
how many machines they can fit in each. And then again, it's imperfect because you can't use schools, and not every municipal building can really function, having a lot of machines in. You might be able
And
to
7
couple
days a
of
week,
units.
or
So
7 days a
We're
week.
really going to have to, before the primary, it's kind of work back in terms of the locations, and then trying to find ones that actually can have a good number of machines in and have that flow of a lot of people for early voting. It's different than a polling location, because you're instead of just one polling location, you're just going to have everyone going in. So it's got to make sense.
For what it's worth, talking to a lot of officials around the country, the rule of thumb for people for jurisdictions that had in place both in-person early voting of some type, plus vote by mail, plus election day, once it's been going on for a while, roughly about a third voted each way, a third on election day, a third by paper, and a third in early voting. Whether that will be anywhere near what we would do eventually, I have no idea, but I had heard that. And I have no problem with giving you whatever, the guesstimate in terms of a number now. Whatever.
Okay.
That you should have a vote on, I
If
think.
there's consensus, then we can move on. That's fine. Okay.
Should we, if we're gonna recommend ordering X number of machines, we probably should have a formal vote on that part, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I think so.
So Tom, you're recommending 80, you're comfortable with 80?
Very comfortable with 8.
Okay.
Very excited.
Based on the recommendations of staff, I move that we requested another 80 voting machines be purchased.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Chairman Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Fryson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kemp?
Yes.
Commissioner Moser?
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Okay, that's your report?
Yes, that was it. That was the last part.
Tom?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Just I submitted our report just to highlight just a couple items. Again, I kind of want to come back and in terms of seasonal employees for the primary
Seasonal, I'm sorry.
For drop-offs, pickups. And so, right now, we have seasonals. It's fair to categorize them as, we would say, they're not really those that would be, you would put them in a car and send them on the road. They're more comfortable in the office. So if we can identify individuals that would be able to do that, it would relieve staff that will have to be doing that in terms of drop-offs, pickups, to do more of the poll worker training or in-office with voter registrations and mail ballots. So if I can ask, and I know you guys are trying to work on those lists, but if you get some individuals, I had sent an email of people who had done drop-offs, pickups in the general election. If you're comfortable, Maria can begin to reach out to those individuals and see if they're available to come back, because they didn't do the 6 months of service during the last general election. But again, if you have individuals you can recommend, because again, we have to get them drug tested before they operate a county vehicle, so the sooner the better in that regard.
Tom, I have to say that I've been requesting this for multiple months. I need a list, I think we need a list of everybody that was hired at any points for November, et cetera, so we know who's available, who's not. What we've been getting, like the last one, was a list of names, random order, alphabetized by first name, with no town, no nothing. I tried to look something up. I got one name, they're registered 10 times. There's 10 people with the same name registered in Middlesex County. I can't determine it. I need what we've asked for at the beginning, which is everybody
We didn't have the address,
who's
but
worked
it
in
had the party.
everything.
It had the party. Okay.
Because we don't have it. We haven't gotten it. We've got, every iteration was incomplete.
Okay, we can get you
I mean, I'm happy to help and
Yeah.
pick it.
We can get you the same report with addresses, and I'll ask.
I mean, there's got to be a payroll report for the county. If they're paying people, they have to have that.
Oh, we have it. Yeah, Maria will get you that.
So can I just ask, Mr. Katz, was that like an example? Are you telling me you have somebody in the system who's registered 10 times, and how was he registered 10 times?
No, they're not registered 10 times.
No, like
There's a name,
like a
there's
John
a name
Smith.
on the list
He's trying
that
to.
they were
Oh.
employed.
Okay.
But the same name,
That's
there are 10 people with that same name registered in
Gotcha.
Middlesex County. It
So
doesn't
it's
count as
The
a town.
information is incomplete.
I thought you saw the duplicates.
No.
No, that's a different
You
issue.
don't think he'd be sitting so quietly, do you?
And another one was 3 people, at least 3
Ted
people.
Dillon's
I know how
job.
you got those
He would
duplicates.
never be that quiet.
And then to jump in, not everything needed to be covered, but the county clerk, in an attempt to kind of help with the cure ballots, had on the certificate flap, put space for the voter to put their phone number and email, so that we have an issue with the signature mismatch, or they can put the signature, that staff would be able to contact the voter and try to apprise them of the issue and try to rectify it.
Where is this on? This is the
It would
certificate.
be on the, how the inner envelope has the
Yeah,
flap.
the flap, on the back of the
It would be
flap.
on the back.
We have something else in the back of the flap.
We don't have a ballot on it.
I just filled out mine.
I don't know. There's nothing on the back.
We have
There
any
was nothing
ballots here?
previously.
Right?
Okay.
It used to be the Gujarati sister, but we had that changed.
I'm glad they had that change, because people weren't going to
Yeah.
get signed because they didn't see it.
Check
Well, it's their design.
Yeah. And then between the county clerk and the board, there's a webpage, middlesexcounty.nj.gov/vote. It's similar to the Vote 2020 pages that we had done for all the voting information for the different elections. So it has all the information that voters might need. So again, we're going to try and direct people through the elections email and stuff like that to voters to that website for resources. And then just lastly, I'm not sure that the public may have some questions. I just wanted to kind of just go over just some points regarding the New Brunswick school board election in terms of the USB stick. There was a question that we kind of had resolved. So just to kind of give a little bit more information that
Please start from the beginning, because at least I know I got no information on it. I understand. I think you talked to.
And again, I'll clarify, I did speak to Commissioner Ang, but I did send an email that on last Tuesday night that had background on.
I got nothing. I got no email that said anything about it, that USB sticks.
I can show you the email, but I did send it to all the commissioners.
Did you get an email?
Yes. I got a complete outline, yes?
An outline of the
From
issue.
minute to, yes.
Why don't you just check his address again, just to make
Sure.
sure it just doesn't go to spam or
Good
something
point.
like
I
that.
don't know
Okay.
if it's spam, but yeah, that's fine.
Okay. But again, just to kind of to highlight that, so
An
again,
executive summary is fine.
Maybe it's in your junk folder.
That's right.
Check your junk folder.
I do.
Or do you have Tom blocked?
I wasn't gonna say that.
I retract that statement. I apologize.
So again, just to highlight, and again, maybe for Commissioner Katz for the first time, is that that there was an omission of a USB stick on the night that we tabulated the New Brunswick School Board election results here at the college. So it was human error. It was by our vendor. It was not discovered. It was discovered by the county clerk in terms of the post-election audit that they do with the results tapes in terms of comparing it to the machine tallies. So when they received that and they reviewed it, they discovered that there was a gap in terms of the count that was on the tapes as opposed to the USB stick. So they had alerted us of that instance. We kind of worked with the vendor and the county clerk to try to identify the location and the stick in question. And when we ran the sticks again, we found that it did not comply with what we had on April 20th. So at that time, we knew we had omitted a stick on the night of that election. So again, I could share the email, but I had talked to the chairwoman about tabulating that stick the day after to include it with more accurate results. So again, it was part of a manual process, and I think this will probably help with the commissioners, is that for the 2020 elections, we used a manual process in terms of processing USB sticks. And as you're familiar with Dominion, we did regional reporting results, where the county clerk kind of read the results and transmitted it to us. It did not make a whole lot of sense in 2020 because we were just using the machines for ADA purposes. And plus our clerks were tasked with a lot to do with the provisional ballots on election night. So it was just easier for the clerks and for us to have them to bring the sticks to us to be read here at the college post-election. And there are other things that need to be implemented before we move to regional results reporting. We need to give the clerks new laptops from ES&S so they can actually do that. We needed to change the transmission lines from the clerks to our office for the information that would be coming from them to us in terms of the election results. That would be encrypted and secured between for our county IT from them to us. And we also needed to do training. We did the manual USB stick process for the April 20th election because we were going to transition towards doing it for the primary, and we wanted to train everyone at the same time so that everyone had the same training, and so there wasn't any break in terms of the training. So because of that, we had the manual process. And again, we'll own the fact that on the 20th, there probably could have been a step added along the way where we could have confirmed that that stick was counted. We did have checks in terms of checking the sticks in and confirming that we had them. But again, we missed that out. But again, the process worked. The clerk was able to see it from the results tape. They alerted us. We communicated that with the vendor and staff, and then we were able to count the votes correctly and have that in before we certified the election. So, all in all, the process worked. We would have preferred if it was done right the first time, and we'll own that. But going forward in June, we'll be doing the regional reporting. So that issue, but again, Linda and staff will have a computer, and they'll be able to see the sticks in real time as they're being loaded in from the different clerk's office. So an issue of a stick not being read wouldn't occur because we'll see that in real time. And as we did with Dominion, we would be able to call the clerk and say, you're missing a stick from district, 3, 14 or whatever it is. So again, we'll have that capability. And also, in terms of the clerks, again, something might be mentioned is that the results being maybe printed at the clerk's office, which some clerks did in prior elections, that functionality, I believe, would still be there for ES&S to be able to do. It couldn't be done because they don't have the ability to read the sticks at the clerk's office, but they'll have that ability in Again, I just wanted to tie that off and just kind of give a little bit more context for that. Obviously, we would prefer that didn't occur, but we were able to kind of resolve it without any impact to the election results or election.
Any comments?
I see an April 27th email, but it was encrypted.
It was encrypted, you weren't
The
able to...
attachment was encrypted. I said, why are we encrypting anything? So I didn't
able
open
to
it.
open it. Okay. Well,
Is
then-
that where we're talking about?
I don't know.
It doesn't mean I don't. I thought when I said New Brunswick tally and it was encrypted, this was New Brunswick numbers. I said, where are we getting New Brunswick numbers in that encrypted message? So that could be it. I didn't. That's all right. We'll deal with it later.
Yeah, it's the 27th, correct?
Please send it to me again unencrypted.
Okay.
Any other comments on the report from the administrator? No? Okay.
Well, there should be actually another piece of new business. We're talking about, I don't know if you polled all the commissioners in terms of combining districts on one machine. I know you talked to
I
me,
did.
everybody agreed?
What's that?
Combining in the primary, combining election districts on one machine in a polling place, or lesser than the number of districts.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Moskowitz had concern about poll worker training, but that there was general agreement to move forward.
Okay,
with that.
well, I think we should have, I'll move that we approve doing that, so we have it on the record.
Okay.
And I will tell you, just as an experience, I know that we have to do that. I had status of the number of poll clerks that were available in East Brunswick as of yesterday. There were 40 districts that would mean 80 Republicans and 80 Democrats, and I was told that as of yesterday, the Republicans had 56 poll clerks and the Democrats had 25. So we should do that, and got to be staff recommendations such as how many machines we reduce it to, and also staff recommendations as to how many poll clerks we should have in the location if we reduce the number of machines. I don't think we should necessarily just 4 per machine, because if we have multiples. Do we have?
Steve?
What I'm doing when it comes to the consolidation is I'm leaving it up to the municipal clerks to tell me which districts they would like to have, like, or even if it's not district related because they have so many in one place, which places you would like them consolidated. The consolidation will consist of, if there's 5 districts, all 5 being on, let's say, 2 machines. And this way that'll cut down on the amount of poll workers that we need, because one poll worker can run 2 to 3 machines by themselves. So that won't really interrupt too much, as far as that cuts down on a major amount of how many poll workers you do
Well, it's
need.
just a question of size.
And space as well.
And how many you have, when you want to use for
Yes.
those purposes.
But I'm also, I suggest to the municipal clerk exactly what we're doing, what the option is, and I leave it up to them as far as how if they would like to or not. I don't want to force it on them as well. I do explain the process, and I do explain how we're training the poll workers, and what the poll workers have to do in order to set the machine, is they have to go in no matter what anyways, and set the party.
Right.
Again, last election, this will ever happen because we're going to electronic poll books. So it means our technology will finally be caught up. We won't have to ever do this again, which is a very good thing. While we're on this election, so I explained that they're going to have to pick the party. Now, the district is assigned to the machine, just one. If they pick Democrat, it will pull up the ballot automatically because there's only one ballot on there. So it'll just, I hit Democrat, it'll pull up the Democrat ballot automatically. If I hit Republican, it will do the same. If you have 5 districts, you'll pick between Democrat, Republican first. Once you do that, it'll pull up the districts that are on there. So if there is districts 1 through 5, and I have the district 4, the poll worker will have to go down press District 4, and then it will load up. It'll load up the screen first that asks, it'll show the party, and it'll show the district. And next to both, we'll have a back section right next
Poll
on the
workers
screen.
still looking?
While the poll worker's still looking.
Okay,
Yep.
go ahead.
So they are going to see it on the back, so on the screen, there is a back button or back spot to press, because it's a touch screen, so it's right next to, it tells you what both are. So it'll say Republican, District 4, and then it'll say continue underneath. So you can back it up anytime if you're double checking. I want the poll workers to take the authority to vote slip that they receive from the voter, and then take the card and bring both in. So they can, obviously they've got the color, so I have a pink slip, and I'm supposed to do District 4. So then I take the card, I put the card in the machine, now I'm setting Republican, and then it goes right to the districts, then District 4, and then of course it always says, this is what you're setting, are you sure? And then I just hit continue, yes.
I'm going to come to one of your training sessions because I want to see exactly.
You said it right.
I'll move that we authorize the combination.
I'll second.
It doesn't, like you said, it does entail a little bit more work on the poll,
I got it.
but they did have to set the party in the old machines.
Yes.
Anyways,
Yes.
that makes me more comfortable too.
Yes.
I didn't know if you'd had,
Which is why we were training,
it's not a new experience going into the machine.
so this is why we were training all the poll
We got to
workers.
finish the vote, just one second. Commissioner Moskowitz?
I didn't hear. Yes.
Okay.
Did you vote?
Yes. Good.
So this is why we're training all the poll workers.
Right.
And also, we're training them all is to be able to set the ballot style, whether they're consolidated or not, I won't even know, and it doesn't matter. As long as they've been trained to know how to do it, it's on the paperwork. If they hit the party and it pulls up the ballot automatically, they realize they're only sitting in one, not a problem.
If East Brunswick has the numbers that I said they have.
Yes, she
the
wants
very
consolidation.
likelihood is- The likelihood is almost every other town is going to have to do that, or is going to want to do that.
I know East Brunswick wants to. She said she's got specifically what she wants and how many machines
Good.
already. So some clerks have already been proactive, but I'm leaving it up to the clerks. I'm not running out and asking, because if they can get enough poll workers and they are setting up normal, let's stay
Well,
normal.
they should be talking to the parties who are
Yes.
recruiting.
Just reach out to maybe the newer clerks,
Okay, I can do that.
like them touching.
Yeah, I can do that, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not, so they're not going to be surprised. when
She's
they're
brand new and
doing
has not
poll
run
work.
it, yes.
I did reach out to her already
Thank you.
to introduce myself and tell her if she needs anything.
Okay, can you
I
move
gave her my
along
cell
here?
phone number, and I told her she's learning from God and she's one of the best.
Thank you.
I don't understand why she thinks that profession, but okay.
Steve, can we move along?
Oh, sorry.
Right, commissioner comments?
I have none, thank you.
Good.
No? All right, public comment. 5 minutes. Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Charlie Cradaville, New Brunswick Today. I hope you can be generous with the time because I do have an important issue to talk about. It's an unacceptable lack of transparency regarding the election results. New Brunswick City Clerk as well as ES&S have gone silent and non-responsive to questions about this matter. Pleased to say Mr. Lynch has been forthcoming and responsive to my inquiries, but the same can't be said of those two entities. And I would like to enter into the record a 4-page document consisting of my emails with Katina Granger of ES&S. I have copies for all the commissioners and one for the administration, if that's okay, Mayor. There you go. So, 4 pages. So, can I just ask, when was the last time something like this happened where an entire voting machine went uncounted for more than a week? Never? Never, okay. And is this the first time that ES&S and their equipment or their systems have failed or screwed up? Or are there other examples in their short time?
I wouldn't say their
equipment didn't fail.
equipment wasn't an issue or their software. It was basic human error in terms of overlooking.
Right, and so what that tells me is there was a single point of failure, and that single point of failure was a unnamed employee of a private company who, by making an honest, what I presume is an honest mistake, those votes weren't counted for over a week. Let the record reflect that I was at your meeting and insisting on more transparency and that the results broken down by voting machine be released immediately. As you all know, this is traditionally done on election night through municipal clerks' offices around the county, and this is the first time that that didn't happen. There were 10 voting machines, only 9 were counted, and any breakdown would have revealed that had it been shared with the public, the press, the board, the county clerk's office. Even the city clerk tells me that they did not have access to that breakdown. A simple count of how many machines had been tallied would have been sufficient to know that an error had been made. But because of this single point of failure on the part of the Nebraska-based firm ES&S, we had a problem. This is a serious problem that needs to be corrected. I'm glad to hear that Mr. Lynch believes this won't be happening again because of new changes or systems that will be in place for the June primary. But I'm just concerned because I didn't know very much about ES&S until this happened, and I've started to look into it, and some things are very troubling. But just on a human decency level, you can see my emails here with Katina Granger. I email on April 29th, also left a voicemail or two. Said they'd get back to me soon. I did get an email the following morning. That was Friday morning, April 30th. And at 12:38, I had some follow-up questions, as you might expect me to. No response. May 3rd, no response. May 4th, no response. That's unacceptable. They made the error. They need to be held accountable, and they're not being accountable. We deserve better, and I'm concerned that now I'm hearing that more machines are going to be purchased from ES&S, that you're considering using them for the poll books. Why shouldn't I be concerned about this? This is a serious problem, no?
It's human error, Charlie.
Right, but if they'd been more transparent, we would have caught it on election night. They were not transparent. The city clerk was not transparent.
I would interject that the city clerk couldn't be transparent because they don't have the ability to read the sticks on election night.
They're no longer in charge of reading the meeting.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe if I don't want to eat into your time, but it's because it was a manual process, the sticks had to be transported from the location to the clerk to us to be read. Because they didn't have the laptops or training, or we didn't have that system set up. In June, once they undergo the training, they'll be able to do that. So whatever you're comfortable with in terms of previous elections when, and again, I'll say Dominion was the voting system, that ES&S has that capability. It's just that we didn't put that into place because it wasn't optimal for 2020 and for this election.
Okay, well, what you're telling me is election results for each voting machine will be released on election night going forward. Or is that wishful hearing?
From the county clerk, and again, I don't know what past practice was in terms of what clerks did under Dominion, so I don't know what they printed or did on particular sites.
When the poll clerks in New Brunswick brought in their sticks, they also brought in the voting results tape. So if there was a request for results to the municipal clerk, and the municipal clerk did not have the results from the tape, from the disc, couldn't they have given
put the results
copies
tapes
of
with the sticks
the
and
results
had it
tapes?
brought to the board, which then was.
There is a safe forward to the Board of Elections office, and the county clerk picked them up. The results tapes were transferred to our office, and the county clerk's office picked it up the next day.
And then the audit was conducted on day 6.
But the review of the results tape was on that Monday, that was day 6.
I'm sorry.
You're extended for 5 minutes.
Thank you. My concern is that this new system, at least in this instance, depends on ES&S staff and their tabulating software to play a role in the reporting of the election results. And this is just very much cause for concern because that, that breakdown is necessary to show whether you actually counted all the sticks or not. If their software or their personnel would simply provide that level of transparency to the clerks and the board, this problem would not have been a problem. This would have been caught on election night, and I'm concerned. Does this software really not provide a breakdown? When you put in the sticks, it just adds up all the numbers and can't provide you with the breakdown, or did they choose only to provide a summary, top-line numbers report when they could have provided more detail? I'm not familiar with the software, so maybe somebody can enlighten me. I believe it's called Electionware. Is that correct?
Where it has the ability to drill down to
It does.
particularly for each stick, for each polling location or each stick, once it's assigned. So again, for regional reporting, that's more in line of what you would normally get in a post-election would be the result by polling location.
And once again, New Brunswick, the exception to the rule. We get the short end of the stick, no pun intended here, and we didn't have the level of transparency that every other election's had. So I'm really concerned about this because I know we're going to have another school election next April, and I don't want it to be like this again, where we're having our polling places closed or we're having the results come out a week later and we're finding extra votes that should have been counted on election night, a week later. It's just not okay. Especially if we spent millions of dollars on this new equipment, and the company that sold it to us can't even give me the courtesy of responses to very, very basic, simple questions, as to why this error wasn't caught, and their policies for, do we know, was this person a staff member, an employee of ES&S, or were they just a contractor hired by ES&S? Do we know their name?
It was an employee of ES&S.
Okay. Is there a representative from ES&S here today?
No.
Okay. I would suggest respectfully that the board, in the interest of transparency, have an ES&S representative at your next meeting. I know you've had some presentations from different vendors that were not publicized, not open to the public, not part of an Open Public Meetings Act meeting for some reason. I think those types of things belong in this setting, and your interactions with those vendors, especially, the ones who made mistakes like this, they need to be held accountable. They should be at this podium explaining themselves, and I shouldn't be the one having to raise heck over this because, they're the ones getting paid millions of dollars to supposedly provide secure, accurate results to the elections. And, this is, as far as I'm concerned, the first time I voted on that machine, the first go-round for me. And, 9 out of 10 machines were counted on election night. 7.3% of the votes on the machines were not counted for more than a week. And, I came to your board meeting after that and I said, hey, why aren't the results out? This needs to be transparent. I think some board members were surprised to know that the county clerk was not releasing the numbers, had no post on their website about it, whereas, for the primary and the general, of course, they have a whole expensive system to release the results. But those of us in New Brunswick, for our school board election, apparently not important enough to use that expensive system to release full, complete numbers to the public. And, we have to ask for it, and even when we ask for it, we don't get it for over a week. It's not acceptable. We deserve full, complete transparency with these results. I can only imagine that some people got that transparency, that some people got to look at those results before the public got them, before I got them, and that's just not okay, especially now we're going to have new systems like early voting and votes coming in, lots of sticks all over the place. We need better processes. This company needs to be held accountable, and I think that the board could be more transparent. I appreciate Mr. Lynch going back and forth with me, responding to my emails, and being more forthcoming than some of these other entities. But I do think that this is a problem that needs to rise to the level of the commissioners, and I would encourage you to invite ES&S to your next meeting to explain this and how this won't happen again, because it is truly unacceptable. And that's the extent of my comments tonight on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess nobody else from the public. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Chairman Moore? Commissioner Franklin?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.